Shalom, Shalom, Israel. First, I want to give all honor and glorification to Yahweh. Shema Mashiach Umarak Yahushua. Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Father, who the world calls God, and Yahweh Shai is the name of His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus the Christ. First, I want to give a strong Shalom to all the mighty men that's going out there laboring, presenting their bodies as a living sacrifice, doing all they can to wake up the lost sheep of the house of Israel, enduring the elements, the 100-degree weathers, the freezing below colds, and everything that's trying to hinder the work of the Most High. Shalom. I want to give another strong shalom to all the mighty women, the aqua, that are out there that reverencing the husbands, and the unmarried sisters as well, being teachers of good things, tender, delicate, and on fire for the Most High in the last days. Shalom. I want to give another strong shalom to all the mighty teenagers and children in this truth as well, doing all they can to make their calling and election sure in the last days. Shalom. Right, Brother Tazamah. And by the title of this code cut, it is titled, What is the Feast of Dedication and How Do You Keep It? All right, when is the Feast of Dedication? What is it about? All right, now we going into this because you had a Feast of Dedication, which is just a little bit less than a month away. All right, as time is moving on and the prophecies are kicking off, a time is speeding up. Right, you have Passover is right around the corner. You have Purim around the corner, destruction of Nicanor. All right, and most importantly, you have the Feast of Dedication, which again is less than a month away, maybe about 4 to 3 weeks away. Right, so it's our job to go into these feast days because that's what this is about, man. You being an Israelite, it's not about you just having a beard on your face and long fringes on, right, and a hair wrap. So you have to keep these feast days that the Most High has given to you, man. Instead of the feast days of this world, Thanksgiving, Halloween, the 4th of July, Christmas, the Most High has given you high holy days as an Israelite for an heritage, right? And you have to keep these feast days, man. If you're not keeping these feast days, we're going to get cut down in the land of the living, right? The Lord has set up these days as holy days given to the Israelites by the Most High to be able to worship Him, right? Again, having fringes on, that's not enough, right? Burning frankincense and myrrh, right? Not eating pork. No, you got to get into these feast days, man, right? So let's actually kick it off. I want to kick it off with the book of Nahum, right? Let's kick it off with the book of Nahum, chapter 1, the classic Nahum, chapter 1, and verse number 15. All right, Nahum, chapter 1, and verse 15. Let's kick it off with the book of Nahum, right? This is the book of Nahum, chapter 1, and verse 15. It says, Behold, upon the mountains are the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace. O Judah, keep thy solemn feast, perform thy vows, for the wicked shall no more pass through thee. He is utterly cut off. Hey, so the Lord said, O Judah, keep thy solemn feast, man. What is the solemn feast? Those are the high holy days by the Most High. Those are the feasts unto the Lord that you are commanded to keep. You have no choice, man. You have certain sisters saying, nah, I'm not keeping those feast days. I don't get into all of that. But she says she an Israelite. Well, the Most High is not dealing with that. I'm not keeping the feast days. I don't know what that's going into. Well, you gotta learn, man. Again, you was willing to learn about Christmas, right? You was willing to get into Thanksgiving, getting into the cranberry sauce, right? You jakes in that cranberry sauce, man, and that ham. But when it comes to the feast days of the Most High, you're not applying yourself, right? Again, it's a commandment to keep these feast days. If you didn't keep the feast days in the ancient world, you'll be put to death, man, with no remedy. Again, these are sacred days that the Lord has set up. They're not ordinary days, Right, let's get that in Sirach chapter 33. Let's actually pull this up on the screen. All right, so like, let me share my screen. All right, let's pull this up. All right, let's go to Sirach chapter 33. Again, you have regular days. Every day is not regular to the Most High. All right, let's go to Sirach chapter 33 and verse number 7. Sirach chapter 33 and 7. Right? It's the book of Sirach chapter 33 and verse number 7. And it reads, it says, why doth one day excel another? When it's all the light of every day and the year is of the sun. Right, now you might say, well, hold on. Why is one day better than another day? And the sun is out every single day. What's the difference between this day and this day? I mean, the sun is out every day, right? Verse 8, by the knowledge of the Lord, they were distinguished. He altered seasons and feasts. So by the knowledge of the Most High, he altered and distinguished the seasons and the feast days, man. Again, this is not the knowledge of man. Man didn't come up and say, you know what? You have to keep the Passover, or you have to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. No, man, this by the knowledge of the Holy One, man. By Yahweh, by Shema Mashiach, Yahushua. Right? Verse number 9. Some of them hath he made high days and hallowed them, and some of them hath he made ordinary days. Right? It says some of them have he made high days and hallowed them. What are the high days? Right? That's the Pentecost. That's the memorial blowing of the trumpets. Right? That's the Feast of Dedication. Right? That's the day of Simon. That's Purim, man. That's the destruction of Nicanor. These are the high days. The Sabbath day, which is the most holy day. And it says, and some of them have he made ordinary days. What is ordinary days? That's your birthday, man. Your birthday, it's an ordinary day. It's a regular day. Christmas is a regular day to the Most High, right? Halloween is an ordinary day. The 4th of July, that's an ordinary day. What else? Valentine's Day, right? Hey, Jake think Valentine's Day is a high day. No, that's an ordinary day, man. Right? The Most High doesn't give a damn about Valentine's Day. It's regular. All right. So again, let's go to Leviticus chapter 23. Right? So you have to get into these feast days, man. Right? And we can't wait for we happy to keep the feast days. Right? We can't wait. That's the only fun you get. You get to be around the Achium, right? The Aquathium. Your brothers and sisters, you get to gather together. Right? You get to have fun in righteousness. Right? You don't have to be in the world hanging around your worldly friends. You know, the Lord said, gather yourselves together. They gather together, O nation not desired. So the Most High commanded us to gather together on these feast days. Right? Now, let's go to Leviticus chapter 23 and 2. Right? This is the book of Leviticus chapter 23 and verse number 2. It says, speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. These are my feasts, right? These are holy convocations, right? What does that word holy mean? The word holy means to be set apart, right? Quadash, right? In the Hebrew, holy, right? Holy convocations, right? What is a convocation? Just look that up. Convocation is a large formal assembly of people, man. Right? A gathering, right? A meeting, an assembly. So these are set apart gatherings that the children of Israel have to follow. Again, don't be that brother or sister saying, I don't have to keep the feast days. All right. You know, you have to keep the feast days, man, in their appointed seasons. All right. Don't keep the feast of dedication if you don't want to. See what's gonna happen, man. Right? God forbid you have somebody saying, I don't have to keep the Passover. Right? The Lord will kill you, man. Again, these are sanctified days by Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua. All right? You have certain jakes talking about, nah, I'd rather go watch the big game. Right? I'd rather go do this. Well, brother, it's going to be caught up to you. And in a day of judgment, the Lord is going to ask you, yeah, you had your beard on your face. Yeah, you had your Bible. You had your shofar. But why didn't you keep these high holy days? Right? Then a lot of brothers, they'll scratch their head. They'll say, oh, you might have some brothers to be prideful. Well, I don't need to keep that. Hey, tell Yahushua you don't need to keep that. See what's going to happen, man. You're going straight into the lake of fire. You're going to be destroyed. Hey, you might even say, well, you know what? It is my fault. I was prideful. Then the Lord is going to say, out of thy own mouth shall I judge thee. Then it's both ways. It's an L and an L. You're going to be in a lake which burneth with fire and brimstone. Right? So you have to keep these feast days that the Most High set up. Right? Now, let's go to John chapter 10. Again, we're going over the Feast of Dedication. John chapter 10 and verse number 22. Right, let's go to the book of John chapter 10 and 22. It says, and it was at Jerusalem, the Feast of Dedication, and it was winter. Right? And Yahushua walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. So Yahushua kept the Feast of Dedication, man. Right? Now it says it was Jerusalem, the Feast of Dedication. Now, if you don't have the Apocrypha, you would never know what the Feast of Dedication is. Right? If you do not have the 14 books that was taken out by the Protestant church in the 1800s, you would not know about the Feast of Dedication. That's why certain Christians, they understanding is all jagged up. They scratching their head, the Feast of Dedication. I never heard of that. Well, you have to blame the Protestant church, man, which took out those books of hidden information. Now, the Feast of Dedication is a feast day that you could read about in 1st and 2nd Maccabees, right? It is a feast day that you could read in the book of 1st and 2nd Maccabees, right? Now, we're going to say this before we get into it. In order to understand the Feast of Dedication, you have to know history, right? In order to understand the Feast of Dedication, you have to know you have to know secular history. You have to know the historical background of the Feast of Dedication. I mean, that's the only way you're going to understand it. Now, you got certain brothers, they don't want to go into the history. Certain women think history that's boring. I don't know. That's not in Proverbs 31. Well, your understanding is going to be all jacked up, man. Right? Your understanding is completely going to be jacked up. So again, in order to understand the Feast of Dedication, you have to know secular history. I mean, if you don't know history, whether you're a man, woman, or child, your understanding of the Bible is not gonna be complete, because history in the Bible links directly up. Let's get this quick precept in Sirach chapter 5. All right, we go to Sirach chapter 5 and 15. This is the book of Sirach chapter 5 and 15. Be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or a small. I'm gonna read that again. Be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or small. So God said, when it comes to ignorance, you can't be ignorant of anything, whether it's your nationality, whether it's the commandments. That might be revelation. You can't be ignorant concerning revelation or Daniel or a small. Certain people, they think history is small. Oh, I don't need that. That's not in the Bible, right? Well, brother, your understanding is gonna be jacked up. How you gonna know who Nebuchadnezzar is if you don't know history? And he's mentioned in the Bible, right? So you cannot be ignorant of history, man. If you're an Israelite, you have to go into history, right? Now, in the Bible, you have historical figures mentioned all throughout the Bible. People say, well, the Bible, that's a book of fairy tales. It's made up. Well, how is it made up when you have historical figures mentioned in the Bible, right? Cyrus the Great, he's mentioned in the Bible, man. Nebuchadnezzar, he's mentioned in the Bible. Caesar Augustus, right? He's mentioned in the Bible. Caesar Tiberius, right? Herod the Tetrarch. These different men they mentioned in the Bible, and you could go into history and you could find them. So how is the Bible a book of fairy tales? But what you're gonna come to find out, those men are ignorant of things in a small matter, right? So again, in order to understand what the Feast of Dedication is, first you have to have the Apocrypha. Not only that, you have to know secular history. All right? You have to have the Apocrypha. If you don't have the Apocrypha, you're gonna be confounded on John chapter 10 and 22. You're gonna be scratching your beard trying to figure out where can I read about the Feast of Dedication, right? Now, this is the book of First Maccabees chapter 1 and 1. Right, let's go to First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, and it happened after that Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead over Greece. So, hold on. You could read about Alexander the Great in the Bible, man. Right? Yes, you could read about Alexander the Great in the Bible. Read First Maccabees. First and Second Maccabees, if anything, I would say they're more of historical records, right? Those are literal historical records, right? Now, again, to understand the Feast of Dedication, you have to know some background information on history, right? You have to know who Alexander the Great is. Let's see if we can pull up Alexander the Great. Right? Alexander the Great was the founder and ruler over the Grecian Empire, right? Alexander the Great, the son of Philip II of Macedon, right? A so-called white man. Now, if you was in history class, they might have talked about Alexander the Great, how he conquered the known world in 12 years. Nevertheless, Alexander the Great is mentioned in the Bible, man. Right? Alexander III of Macedon, also known as Alexander the Great, because his father was Philip II of Macedon. All right? And he ruled over the Grecian Empire. Right? He reigned from 336 to 223 BC. All right? So you have to get into this history, man. Now, we're not going to go too in depth, but you have to know who Alexander the Great is, because he's mentioned in the Bible. Now, it says, and it happened after that Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece. Right? Because Alexander the Great, he took down Darius III at the Battle of Gargamella in 331 BC. Right? You could actually look up these wars And when you go into these wars, Alexander the Great, he actually took down the Persian and Mede Empire. Again, he took down Darius III at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC. All right, and he was the ruler over the Greece. And you can read about Alexander the Great in the book of Daniel the second chapter. All right, let's go to that. Daniel chapter 2. So stop thinking the Bible is just a book where you could just freak off at. Well, Noah's Ark. All you thinking about is Noah's Ark, man. Wow, dang, how was Noah so strong to be able to build that? Well, brother, you have to get more in depth in it, right? The Bible is more than just Adam and Eve. Now, when you read Daniel chapter 7, it actually prophesies of 4 kingdoms, right? You have the Babylonians, the Persian and Medes, the Greeks, and you have the Romans. All right. Now, when you go into it, and you have the 3 horns, but when you go into it in Daniel chapter 2, it's Daniel chapter 7, this Daniel 7:3, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. Again, those 4 great beasts that Daniel see coming up out of the nations, which is the sea, is your Babylonian Empire, right? It's your Babylonian Empire, your Persian and Mede Empire, the Greek Empire, and the Romans. It says the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Again, talking about Nebuchadnezzar II and the Babylonian Empire. You could look that up. Let's jump down to verse 7. Actually, let's jump down to verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Now, who is this leopard? Right? Who is this leopard? Well, this is the Greeks, right? That's the leopard. Because even when you go into history, right, Alexander the Great used to wear leopard skin on him while he went to war. See that? He used to have leopard skin on his horse when he went to war. See if we can pull up a better picture. Right? They said when Alexander the Great went to war, he had a leopard skin on him. So again, this is in the Bible, man. Right? This is in the Bible. You can't make this up. Right? Alexander the Great, he had leopard skin when he went to war. All right. So that leopard is the Greek Empire. All right, that leopard is the Greek Empire. Now, it says, I want to read on. It says, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. Right? The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Now, those 4 heads, that's talking about chiefly, you had a lot of successors of Alexander the Great, but you had 4 main ones going into Cassander, Lycomaxus, right? Seleucid, and Ptolemy, right? Also known, what scholars would say, the Diadochi, all right? The Diadochi. And you have to know this. Oh, I believe that's how you spell it. You have to know this because this is the only way you're going to understand the Maccabees, right? You have to know this. This is the only way you're going to understand the Feast of Dedication. Now, after Alexander the Great died of AIDS, right, his kingdom was split up into 4 regions, all right? And it's called the Diadochi, right? It says the Diadochi were rival generals, families and friends of Alexander the Great, who fought for control over his empire after his death in 323 BC. The wars of the Diadochi marked the beginning of the Hellenistic period from the Mediterranean Sea to the Indus River Valley. All right. So again, you had, let's see if I can pull a better map. All right, bear with me. Just the picture I want. Right? So again, Alexander the Great, his kingdom was split up into four. Now you had a lot of other successors like Eumenes the First, Perdiccas, right? You had a lot of other men, but these main four men, right? This was his kingdom was split up. You had Ptolemy, which was over the Levant and Egypt and parts of North Africa, right? You had Lycomachus, right? You had Seleucus, which covered into Asia Minor, and then you had Cassander. All right. Now, as we go into the Seleucid, you're going to read about the Seleucid Empire in the book of Maccabees. All right. You can actually read about the Seleucid Empire in the book of Maccabees, man. And it's a reason why they took this out. Because in the Bible, you read about three kingdoms. You read about three captivities, man. Right? You read about a lot of captivities. You read about the Assyrian captivity in the scriptures. You read about the Babylonian captivity. You read about the Persian and Medes. And when you go into the New Testament, you read about the Roman captivity. Right? Well, hold on. Where's the Greek captivity at? Where's that information at? Right? Why is that information just missing? We're going to come to find out it's in the book of 1st and 2nd Maccabees. Right? That's where the information is. That's why when you read 1st Maccabees 1 and 1, it's going into Alexander the Great. All right? So let's read on that. Let's go to 1st Maccabees. Let's go back to that in 1st Maccabees. Right? Let's go back to that in 1st Maccabees. It's the book of 1st Maccabees, chapter 1. Salakia. Let's go to 1st Maccabees, chapter 1. Right, it's the book of 1st Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, and it happened that after Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, first over Greece, and made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went through the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. Because again, Alexander the Great, he conquered the known world in about 12 years. And people say Alexander the Great might be the best war general of all time, due to him being able to conquer that amount of lands in 12 years. Right? But verse number 4, and he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. After these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die, whereupon he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. See that? So a lot of when you go into the Diadochi, a lot of those men, they actually grew up with Alexander the Great. But this the point. It says, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. Right? Again, that kingdom being parted was going into the Greek Empire in the 4 divisions. You got Ptolemy the first Soter, you got Seleucus, Cassander, and Lysimachus, right? That's the kingdom being parted into 4. Well, his kingdom being parted. Again, those are the 4 heads in Daniel the 7th chapter. Verse 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died of AIDS, right? Alexander the Great died of AIDS, man. And some would say he was getting popped by his men, man. Right? The so-called white man, he died. Alexander the Great, he died of AIDS due to homosexuality. Right? Verse 8, it says, and his servants bear rule everyone in his place. Right? And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves, so that their sons after many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. See that? And evils were multiplied in the earth. You see what happens when a so-called white man come into power? And when the Greeks came into power, it said evils were multiplied in the earth. Right? Moral wickedness increased, man. Hey, that's fulfilling Bible prophecy. Right? Nevertheless, you had evils, they were multiplied more and more and more in the earth when these men came into power. All right, but yeah. Now you could go into we're not gonna go in depth, but you could go into the Diadochi on your own. You could go into these men. You had the Seleucid dynasty. You could pull up the Seleucid dynasty. See that? You had the Seleucid dynasty. You had Antiochus the first Soter. Well, you had Seleucus the first Nicator, right? And you could read about these men in Daniel the 11th chapter on down, going into the 6 Syrian wars, right? So this is the whole family tree, and we're gonna read about this man right here, right? Antiochus Epiphany, the 4th Epiphanes. We're gonna read about this devil in a minute, right? Nevertheless, this is the Seleucid dynasty of men that ruled, right? And this is the Ptolemaic dynasty. You had Ptolemy the first Soter, Ptolemy the second Philadelphus, Ptolemy the third Eudotes, right? Ptolemy the fourth Philopator, and Ptolemy the fifth Epiphanes. Again, all of these men, you could read about them chiefly when you go into Daniel the 11th chapter, again, going into the 6 Syrian wars. All right. But let's go back to this. Let's go back to First Maccabees. Now, it says, First Maccabees, chapter 1 and 9. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves, so that their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. Right, let's get a precept on that. Quick precept. So that lets you know, I mean, when a so-called white man gets in power, evil, just nothing but wickedness and literally comes up. That's how you know Esau is the devil, man. The so-called white man, he's the devil that the Bible speaks of. Right? And when King Solomon was reigning, it wasn't no evils weren't multiplied, man. It was righteousness, right? When King David was on his throne, before David went off, it was nothing but righteousness abounding. Then the so-called the Greeks get into power, all hell break loose. Let's go to Proverbs. All right. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 29, and verse number 2. Proverbs chapter 29 and verse number 2. It says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. So when righteous men is in power, people is going to be rejoiced, man. When Yahushua returns, we're going to be rejoicing. We're going to be happy. We're not going to be sad with our heads down. Right? So when the righteous are in authority, people rejoice. But when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. See that? So when wicked people get up in authority, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, down Alexander the Great, Antiochus Ptolemy the first soda, right? Biotiches, right? Jason. When these men get in authority, people mourn, man. Let me jump down to verse 16. Verse number 16. When the wicked are multiplied, transgressions increaseth. See that? Who is the wicked? The so-called white man. That he's the wicked, man. Right? Read Malachi chapter 1 and read verse 4. The Lord called them the border of wickedness. I mean, just look at anything they do. Right? We was talking to a so-called white woman yesterday, man, and she looked like a demon. She had an upside down cross on her neck. Right? She had makeup all on her eyes. She was wearing all black lipstick on. You can't tell me these people are not the devil, man. They have no understanding, right? They have incest with their own family members. Only Esau does that. They cut themselves. These people are the wicked, man. Now, reading that again, it says, when the wicked are multiplied, transgressions increaseth, but the righteous shall see their fall. See that? So the righteous, they gonna see the fall of the wicked, which is the so-called white man, which is the Greeks, right? Which is the Romans. They're the wicked of the earth. All right. Now let's read on verse 10. It says, 1 Maccabees 1 and 10. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, the son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome, and he reigned in 137 year of the kingdom of the Greeks. Right? So you read in the Bible, in 1 Maccabees, you read about Antiochus Epiphanes, or Antiochus surnamed Epiphanes, also known as Antiochus Epiphanes the Fourth. And this is one of the most wickedest Edomites to ever walk the earth. Right? This is one of the most wickedest Edomites to ever walk the earth. Just look at him. He just looked off. Right? He just looked wicked, man. This is the devil, man. And when you read these accounts in 1 Maccabees, this man was just off. Right? Antiochus Epiphanes IV was a Greek Hellenistic king who ruled during the Seleucid Empire, because he came out of the Seleucid dynasty. That's why we just pulled up the map earlier of the Seleucid dynasty, right? From 175 BC until his death in 164 BC, right? And this, when you go into, let's look up Epiphanes definition. This word Epiphanes is blasphemy. Let's see why he's surnamed himself Epiphanes, right? Epiphanes, Greek, meaning God manifest, right? Or the glorious illustrious. So this man, he named himself Epiphanes. He thought he was the Most High. He said, hey, a God is manifest. I'm God on the earth, right? You must not know who I am. Right? This was his name, man. God manifest. Let's go to the book of Second Thessalonians, right? Let's go to Second Thessalonians. So again, you have to know who these men are. And again, this is one of the most wickedest Edomites. We talk about Caesar Borgia, right? We talk about Christopher Columbus. We talk about a lot of Edomites. And you might think your Edomite at your job is the most wickedest Edomite. Well, he has nothing on Antiochus Epiphanes IV, right? This is Second Thessalonians chapter 2 and 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there become a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. Who is the man of sin? The so-called white man, Esau, the devil. He's that man of sin, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worship, so that he sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. See that? You can't get around this, man. It says, showing himself that he is God. Long behold, Antiochus Epiphanes, Epiphany means God manifest, because he thought he was the Most High, right? Hey, that's evil, man. But again, the so-called white man, they have to be the people of God. They're God's chosen people, right? So-called white man, he's God. He can say he's God and he's God's chosen people. And you will be a fool, man, to think these people are gods, right? These are base men pursuing to Job, the 30th chapter. So we know that's Esau, right? Nevertheless, you read about Antiochus Epiphanes IV in the Bible, right? Which came out of the Seleucid dynasty. And even when you go into the history of how this man came into power, he wasn't even supposed to be ruling, man. I believe Antiochus III, he had another son. He was supposed to rule, but Antiochus Epiphanes IV killed him and reigned in his stead. So this man is off. That's why it says a wicked root, right? The so-called white man, he's a wicked root, man. I mean, just look what he has done. He covered up who Yahushua is. He painted him to be white, right? He told you that you were black, man, that you were a Negro, a slave boy, right? He raped your foremothers and your ancestors, but yet he's righteous. No, the Lord called him a wicked root, right? Now let's read on. Verse 11. In those days there went out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed, from them we had much sorrow. So this device pleased them. And that's Israel. Israel, you had, don't think coons only came about during this time. No, you had coons in the ancient world. You had wicked men out of Israel saying, let's go make a covenant with the so-called white man. Right? For since we departed from them, we had much sorrow. Hey, that's coonery, man. When did the Most High say you make a covenant with the heathen? I thought you were supposed to make a covenant with the Lord thy God to walk in all his statutes and his commandments. But Israel, again, it's nothing new underneath the sun. Let's get that in Ecclesiastes 1 and 10. Just like you have coons now, you had coons back then. Right? What do I want? Ecclesiastes. So I encourage brothers and sisters to hop into the book of 1st and 2nd Maccabees, man. That's a beautiful book. It's a lot that's in there. All right. This is the book of Ecclesiastes 1 and 9. The thing that have been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. So the things that have been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. What does that mean? There is no new thing underneath the sun. What's going to let you know in the next verse? It says, is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? Right? Because you have Jake. Hey, Jake come out with these dance moves like the nay nay and the whip. Hey, Jake think he the first one to create waves, man. You know, you had waves all the way during the time of the Egyptian Empire, right? A lot of these things that's on the earth, it already happened, man. Just read the Bible, man. You think you're the only one that's catching hell, affliction? No, brother. Men thousands of years ago went through the same thing you went through, right? Jake think he the first one to experience a heartbreak. No, brother. You had men in the Bible. They experienced heartbreak. You had men before you experienced heartbreaks. So really, anything that you say, well, this must be new, you can't say that, because what it says, it have been already of old time, which was before us. See that? So don't just think you had coons right now. No, you had coons in the ancient world. Let's go to First Maccabees, chapter 7 and 5. Let's get quick precepts on that. You had coons in the ancient world, man. That were coons. You had traitors, right? This First Maccabees, chapter 7 and 5. There came unto him all the wicked and ungodly men of Israel, having Alchemists, who was desirous to be high priest for their captain. And they accused the people to the king, saying, Judas and his brethren have slain all thy friends, and driven us out of our own land. Now therefore send some man whom thou trustest, and let him go and see what havoc he had made among us in the king's land, and let him punish them with all them that aid them. See that? So you had Israel talking about Judas has slain all thy friends, king. When Judas is your own people, man. Right? So you had Israel, they were snitching back then, snitching on Judas, trying to get him killed. Their own people, man. So again, you had coons thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago. Right, let's read on. It's the book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, and verse. Man, it's a good book. It's First Maccabees 1 and verse number 12. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so for herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen. And that's where you get your so-called gymnasium from, right? The Greek gymnasium, it literally goes back to the word, which means literally to work out naked. Right? So you had Jakes in the ancient world working out naked, man. Getting that from the Greeks. Right? It says to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. See that? And that's Jake now. Right? Jake sell himself to the so-called white man. Hey, Jake could do anything. Jake could get popped by the so-called white man just to get some money. And you have certain these celebrities like Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, and the so-called white man that say put on a dress, and they'll do it for some money. Right? They'll uncircumcise themselves. Hey, a lot of Eves, they'll put that blonde hair in their head and put some blue contacts in their eyes, because they want to be like the so-called white woman, right? And they're insecure. So it says, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. So all of this was going around during the time of the Greeks. All right. Israel, they forsook the covenant and they joined themselves to the Greeks. Right. Now, let's read on. Now, when a kingdom was established for Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of two realms. Wherefore, when he entered into Egypt with chariots and elephants and horsemen and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt, but Ptolemy was afraid of him and fell, and many were looted to death. So Antiochus Epiphanes, he's making war against the Ptolemaic dynasty, and he wanted them to death. It says, thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. And after that, Antiochus had smitten Egypt. He returned again in 140th and third year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem and a great multitude. So this is where you starting to get into Slovakia. This is where you starting to get into history, or really starting to get into what the Feast of Dedication is. Right? So again, this man, let's pull up this devil. This man right here, Antiochus Epiphanes, he did what? He went up against Israel and Jerusalem, right, with a great multitude, and did what? And entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar and the candlestick of light and all the vessels therein. So this man went and entered into our sanctuary. Hold on, I thought only the priest could go in there, right? In the law, it's commanded you have certain priests, right? You had a high priest. Not all priests could just do any office. You have certain priests that are over the shewbread, they're over the holy place, right? You have Aaron the priest, he went into the holies of holies, right? You just couldn't just do whatever you wanted to do in the temple, man, in the sanctuary. So this man, he's not even a priest, man, but he entered into the sanctuary. All right, let's see if we could pull that up. Right? Let's see. This man entered into the sanctuary, right? See if I could get a good picture. Right, Solomon's temple. Right? So you had a sanctuary in Solomon's temple. All right. No, that's not a good picture. Look at Esau. Nevertheless, this is Solomon's temple, right? So he entered into the sanctuary, and the sanctuary is where you have your menorah, right? You had a menorah in there, the shewbread. This is what you know as the holy place, right? You had a holy place in there. It's a little bit better picture, but you had the holy place in here, right? The candlestick will be in there. See if we can find a better picture. Oh, this was a decent picture. Yeah, you had the altar of incense right here, right? What just happened? You had the altar of incense, the shewbread, the candlesticks, and in there, that's the most holy place. Everybody can't even step into the holy place, right? Only the priests are supposed to be back there, man. But Antiochus, he didn't give a damn, right? He went in there proudly. All right. He went in there proudly and did what he wanted to do. Right? He went in there proudly and did what he wanted to do. Let's get a quick precept. Go to the book of Numbers. And that's Esau for you. Esau just do what he want to do. He just he came over to the Native American. He just took the land. Hey, this mine's now. He made war with them, killed them. Did that to the Taino Indians, right? Who are you to just walk in somebody's sanctuary and do what you want to do? Hey, that's off, man. But that's the so-called white man for you, a proud devil. Let's go to Numbers chapter 4. Right, it's the book of Numbers chapter 4 and verse number 2. Numbers chapter 4 and 2. Take the sum of the sons of Kohath from among the sons of Levi after their families by the house of their fathers, from 30 years old and upward, even unto 50 years old, all that enter into the host to do the work in the tabernacle of congregation. This shall be the service of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation about the most holy things. So only the sons of Kohath could even go in here and deal with the most holy things. Antiochus he's not from the tribe of Levi. He doesn't descend from Kohath, but he still entered into the sanctuary proudly, into the temple. Right? Let's read this. It says, and entered proudly into the sanctuary and took away the golden altar and the candlestick of light and all the vessels thereof and the table of shewbread and poured vessels and the vials and the censers of gold and the veil and the crown and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold and the precious vessels also he took, the hidden treasure which he found. So this man took all of the gold, man. He took out the vessels, the holy things. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre and spoken very proudly. What is a great massacre? Right? You have a movie called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, meaning a massive killing. Right? Therefore, there was a great mourning in Israel in every place where they were. See that? So all hell broke loose. He came into the land of Israel. He started destroying everything with his men. Now, we're not going to read this whole chapter. You could read first, second, third, and fourth Maccabees, right? Chapter 1, 2, and 3, and 4, right? And go into that on your own. Nevertheless, when we going into it, we're just going to get a quick summary of what happened, right? You could read first Maccabees chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4 on your own in depthly, right? But let's go down to verse. I want to touch on this because there's a lot of history in here. But let's go to first Maccabees 1 and 41. Right? This first Maccabees 1 and 41. Let's jump down to verse 41. Right? Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and every one that all should be one people, and everyone shall leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificing to the idols and profane the Sabbath. For the king had sent by messengers into Jerusalem and the cities of Judah that they should follow the strange laws of the land. See that? So with this time period, from First Maccabees chapter 1, 41 and 44, this is what you call the Hellenization period. You have to, if you're an Israelite in this truth, you have to know about the Hellenization period. If you don't know that history of the Hellenization period, your understanding of the Bible is gonna be faulty. That's why these Christians, they can't understand when it says in the Bible there is neither Jew nor Greek. They can't understand that because they haven't read first and second Maccabees, man. You have to know about the Hellenization period. Let's see if we can pull this up. The Hellenization period was a time period where a lot of the Israelites, not even just Israelites, you had Hamites being Hellenized, you had other nations being Hellenized. They literally stopped what they was following, and they had to follow the ways of the Greeks. If they didn't follow the ways of the Greeks, they would die. Right? They would die. Or also known as the Hellenization age. Now look at this. This is the Hellenization age, right? Again, you read about the Seleucid dynasty. Now, when you go into this, some parts of the Levant was conquered by the Seleucid dynasty. And you had the Ptolemaic dynasty, which had literally Egypt. But you got to remember, the Seleucid dynasty, they took over this, right? We just read that in First Maccabees. He slew Ptolemy, or Ptolemy fell and was wounded to death. All right. Nevertheless, let's go to this. Now, this is the Hellenistic age, is a period in history defined as the time between the death of Alexander the Great and the rise of Roman domination. During this time, Greek culture was dominant through the Mediterranean. Thus the name Hellenistic, which is derived from the Greek Hellas, which means Greece, who are called Hellenistics, right? So this was a time period where the Greek culture was dominant. If you didn't get down with the ways of the Greeks, you would be killed, man. You would be put to death. That's why you have something called that's why you have something called a Greek-speaking Jew. Let's look that up. That's something called the Greek-speaking Jews of Greece, right? So don't just think, well, English, this is the first time in history that we had to speak the language of the so-called white man. No, our forefathers, they had to speak the language of the Greeks, man. Right? Let's say as Negroes from ancient Greece. They were Hellenized. They were following the ways of the Greeks, of the so-called white man. Right? They was getting down with the strange idols and the gods. Right? Again, you had something called Greek-speaking Jews, which Jews that spoke the Greek language during the Hellenistic period, right? So let's go back to this in First Maccabees, and you're going to read more as we go down. It says, First Maccabees chapter 1 and 45, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, that they should profane the Sabbath and the festival days. So during this time, hey, if the so-called white man said, when Antiochus came in, he said, you got to forsake the Sabbath day, right? The festival days. And you had a lot of Jakes. They was getting down with the so-called white man's high holy days, man. They was worshiping Hermes, right? Asclepius. These different Greek, Athena, right? Poseidon. You had Jakes getting down with that. And they forsook the Sabbath day and festival days, man, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. See that? This is what was going on, man. It says that they shall also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable by all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the intent, right? To the intent, you see if I can highlight this, to the intent that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. So the so-called white man, he set this up so that the children of Israel can forget their laws, right? And follow the ways of the Greeks, right? And you had Israel, they loved the ways of the Greeks. That's the Vol, right? And they was getting down. And you had certain men when we, because hey, now we getting into the meat, right? We getting into the feast of dedication. Now we getting into the meat. You had certain other men, they said, Hell, no, we not finna forsake the laws of the Most High. We gonna keep the commandments. We don't give a damn about the Greeks, right? But certain Israel, they was getting down, man. They was sacrificing swine's flesh, right? They was popping women in the temple, leaving sperm all on the floor. And they didn't give a damn, man. They was leaving their children uncircumcised, to the extent that they might forget the law. That's what these other nations want us to do. They want us to forget who we are. They want us to forget the law, statutes, and commandments, right? They want us to forget our God. A God forbid we should forget the Most High, man. Everything that the Lord has done for us, right? A God forbid we should forget that, man. Right? Let me get this quick precept. I believe that's Deuteronomy chapter 4. Right? I believe it's Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse number 12. Let me see. It's like it is Deuteronomy chapter 4 and 9. Only take heed to thyself and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thy eyes have seen, and lest they depart from thy heart all the days of thy life, but teach them thy sons and thy sons' sons. So the Most High told us to take diligent heed and keep thy soul diligently, lest we forget the things, lest we forget the miracles of the Most High, lest we forget everything he has done for us, how he brought us into this truth, how he gave us these high holy days. Again, a so-called white man, he wants that, right? This is the point in verse 50. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die, right? He should die, right? So a lot of the Israelites, they had no choice. You could either die by the so-called white man, or you could just sell out, right? In the same self manner wrote he to his whole kingdom and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, that everyone forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land, right? And as you read down, right, they was burning up the Bibles, right? You can read this on your own, but they was burning up the Bibles. They was down setting up the abomination of desolation. This was a worst. Hey, this wasn't one of the worst times for the children of Israel. This time period of Antiochus Epiphanes IV, right? So that's where you had a Hellenization period. That's why in the New Testament, again, if you don't understand history, you're not going to be able to understand the Bible. That's why these Christians, they can't understand the damn Jew nor Greek. Let's pull this up. Galatians. I don't know how many times we deal with this, man. This is Galatians chapter 3 and 28. Christians, they can't understand this. It says, there is neither Jew nor Greek, bond nor free. There is neither male nor female, for ye all are one in Christ Jesus. They read this verse and they say, see, it don't matter who you is, right? Then you just ask them, who are the Greeks? Are you a Greek? All you got to do is ask them, are you a Greek? Right? When it says there's neither Jew nor Greek, again, when Paul is writing this, he's living during the time of the Roman Empire. So if Paul is living during the time of the Roman Empire, why would he say there's no Greek and he's living during the time? He should have said there's neither Jew nor Roman. But what you're going to come to find out, these Greeks that it's talking about Israelites that was Hellenized during the Greek Empire, because a lot of that Greek influence carried over to the Romans, right? But people, they can't understand that because they don't know history. They don't know about the Hellenization period. They don't know about Ptolemy the First Soter. They don't know about Antiochus Epiphanes the Fourth. They don't do no history, right? That's why when you go into this word in the Greek, it literally means Helen, right? When you go into this word for Greek, it means Helen, man, meaning Hellenized. And let me see if I can get that. Where's my bag at? Right? So like you bear with me 1 second. I'm finna go get my Zondervan Bible Compact Dictionary. All right, Slacky, I'm back. Now, let's see. Now, you got a Zondervan Bible Compact Dictionary, right? Now, when you go into this word, let's go to this word for Greeks. Right? So, when you read this word Greeks on page 207, right? Page 207, it says, at the end, it says, meditated through Rome. The term Greece was applied to all Hellas, and all Hellens were called Greeks by Western Europe, right? So all Hellens, if you were Hellenized, you were called a Greek, right? So Greek is not a nationality. Greek is a title, because you could be a Hamite, African, but you could, during that time, if you was under a Hellenistic period, you were called a Greek, right? Let's prove that. Just getting a little bit of history on that, right? Let's prove that. It's like it. Let's go to the book of, let's see. Let's go to the book of Matthew. Right, let's go to the book of Matthew. So these Christians, man, they understanding all jacked up. Let's go to Matthew 15, 20, and 22, I believe. Right, this is Matthew chapter 15 and 22. It says, and behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the coast and cried unto him, saying, have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievous, vexed with a devil. Now, this says a woman of Canaan, right? This says a woman of Canaan. Now, let's go to Mark chapter 7. Right, let's go to Mark chapter 7, 25. Let's go to the book of Mark chapter 7 and 25. So in the book of Matthew, this woman, she was referred to as a Canaanite. When we read Mark chapter 7 and 26, Mark 7 and 26, it said, this is the same woman. It's the same account. It says the woman was a Greek, right? A Syrophoenician by nation. She besought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter. Now hold on. It says in Matthew 15 that she was a woman of Canaan. She was a Canaanite. Now it's calling her a Greek, a Syrophoenician. When you look up what a Syrophoenician, let's look this up. Because when you go into it, the Jews wasn't the only people that were Hellenized by the Greeks. Many nations were Hellenized by the Greeks. When you go into the Syrophoenician, let's pull this up. It's literally, let's see. Right here, Phoenicia. Right? So this woman was called a Greek because she was under the influence of the Greeks. Right? That's why she was called a Greek, but she was a Canaanite. She was a Canaanitish woman. So that just lets you know that not just the Israelites were called Greeks if they were under that influence. If you was a Hamite and you was underneath the Hellenization period, guess what? You were called a Greek. That was your name now. No, you're not a Hamite, you're a Greek. No, you're not an Israelite, you're a Greek. And if you didn't say you was a Greek, oh, it was a say goodbye for you. Right? So that's the Hellenization period. Now, let's really get into this. Let's really get into this Feast of Dedication. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 2. Right? Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 2. Now, as you read on in 1 Maccabees chapter 1, a lot of the Israelites, they got down with the Greeks. Right? They got down with the Greeks, but you had a certain group of people, right, which is chiefly the Maccabees, right, or Mattathias and his sons, they didn't give in. That's why it says, in those days arose Mattathias, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the son of Joab from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modem, and he had 5 sons, Jonan, called Cadius, Simon, called Theseus, Judas, who was called Maccabeus, Eleazar, called Averin, and Jonathan, who was surnamed Appius. And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, woe is me! Wherefore was I born to see the misery of my people and of the holy city, and to dwell there? And it was delivered into the hand of the enemy, and a sanctuary into strangers. Right? It says, let's jump down. Let's jump down to verse 16. And when many of Israel came into Mattathias also, and his sons came together, then answered the king's officers and said to Mattathias on his wives, thou art a ruler and an honorable great man in the city, and strengthened with sons and brethren. Now therefore come thou first, and fulfill the king's commandment, like as all the heathen have done, yea, and the men of Judah also, and such as remain at Jerusalem. So thou and thy house shall be in the number of the king's friends, and thy children shall be honored with silver and gold and many rewards. So this man is saying, well, I know you see all the rest of the children of Israel bowing down. You and your sons, you might as well just come on and do it. Hey, we have gold for you. We have rewards. We have treasures. All you got to do is forsake your covenants. Just sake the laws of your God. Right? What did Mattathias get down, man? Right? Did he say, you know what? Dang, they have great reward. What, they have fruit snacks over there? No, man. This is what Mattathias said in verse 19. Then Mattathias answered and spake with a loud voice, through all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him. It says, though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall every one from the religion of their fathers, and give consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers, right? God forbid that we should forsake the law and ordinances. We would not hearken to the king's word to go from our religion, either on the right hand or the left. He said, God forbid that we should forsake the law and ordinances. And when you going into this is what you call the Hasmonean dynasty, or also known as the Maccabean revolt, right? Let's see if we could pull this up. Right? See if we could pull this up. So you have Mattathias, you have the Maccabean family. Again, this is history. This is history they don't put out there. Now you have Mattathias, right? You have his sons, John, Simon, Judas, Eleazar, Jonathan. Then from Simon, he had Judas and John. You read about that in the book of First Maccabees, chapter 16. You can read about his sons. And you had Mattathias, John Hyrcanus, right? These are the family trees, right, of our forefathers, man, of Mattathias, right? And what this started was when they said we're not keeping the king's commandments, we're going to keep the commandments of our God. What started was you had something called the Maccabean revolt, right? Which was the biggest slave revolt of all time, right? The Maccabean revolt was the biggest slave revolt of all time. So people talk about W.E.B. Boyce or D.U. Boyce, right? They talk about Nat Turner and his slave rebellion. But this is the biggest slave revolt or rebellion of all time that the so-called white man does not want to tell you about. And when I was growing up in school, man, I didn't learn about the Maccabean revolt, right? I just learned about the Maccabean revolt maybe like 2 years ago, right? The so-called white man is not going to teach you this. It says the Maccabean revolt was a Jewish rebellion led by the Maccabees against the Seleucid Empire and against the Hellenistic influence on Jewish life. The main phase of the revolt lasted from 167 to 160 BC and ended with the Seleucians in control of the Judea. Right, so the Maccabean revolt was from 167 to 160 BC. Again, this is the biggest slave revolt of all time, also known as the Hasmonean dynasty, right? It's known as the Hasmonean dynasty, right? Where our forefathers from Mattathias all the way until Alexander Janal were ruling. Again, you have Jonathan in here, right? Well, this is after the Hasmonean revolt, right? You have the inspection under Jonathan, expansion under Simon, right? Hey, our forefathers, when you go into this, we're not going to spoil it, but when you read First Maccabees chapter 1, 2, and 3, or First and Second Maccabees, hey, our forefathers, we was revolted, man. We wasn't selling out. We was standing 10 toes down for the name of the Lord, and our forefathers was putting these Edomites to flight, right? Esau don't want to let you know for 7, maybe 8 years, the so-called white man was getting put to flight by the Maccabees. He don't want to let you know that, right? But again, Mattathias said, God forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. And with this right here, it restarted a revolt, right? Again, the Maccabean revolt or the Hasmonean dynasty, chiefly the Maccabean revolt, right, from 167 to 160 BC. And this got to be our mindset, because this is going to happen again, man. The so-called white men say, well, hold on, you can't wear your fringes no more. A lot of brothers, you would tuck in your fringes and say, okay. A Mosai willing, we not sucking in our fringes. We gonna stand 10 toes down, Mosai willing, for Yahweh Ba'Shem Mashiach Umarak Yahushua. Right? Now, let's go to First Maccabees chapter 4. Let's go to First Maccabees chapter 4. And let's go to verse number. Let's start at this. Right? We're not gonna read the whole first, right? Maccabees chapter. We're not gonna read this whole book and go into it. Nevertheless, let's get to the point. First Maccabees chapter 4 and 35. Now when Lysias saw his army put to flight, and the manliness of Judah's soldiers, and how they were ready either to live or die valiantly, he went into Antiochus and gathered together a company of strangers. And having made his army greater than it was, he purposed to come into Judea. Then Judas and his brethren, behold, our enemies are the comfort. Let us go and cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. So Judas Maccabees, right? Again, Judas Maccabeus that you read about in the scriptures. Let's see if we can pull this up. Let's pull up this family tree again. Right, Judas Maccabees right here. He discomforted Lysias and his army, right? Our forefather. So when he did that, he said, our enemies are discomforted. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. And this is where you get the Feast of Dedication. All right. The Feast of Dedication is basically a memory, right? Or a committee to go to our temple and cleanse it after the heathen defiled it. So after the so-called white man defiled our temple, after we put them to flight and revolted, we cleansed the sanctuary and we kept the cleansing of the dedication for 8 days. That's where you get the Feast of Dedication from, right? So when you go to verse 37, and upon all this, the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Zion. Jumping down to verse 46. And laid up the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to shew what should be done with them. Then they took whole stones according to the law and built a new altar according to the former, and made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple, and hollowed the courts. They made also new holy vessels, and into the temple they brought the candlestick and the altar of burnt offerings and of incense and of table. And upon the altar they burned incense, and lamps that were upon the candlestick they light, that they may give light in the temple. Furthermore, they set loaves upon the table, and spread out the veils, and finished all the works which they had begun to make. Now on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is called the month Chalcius, in the 48th year, they rose up betimes in the morning, and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings, which they made. Look at what time and what day the heathen profaned it. Even in that was it dedicated with songs and citherns and harps and cymbals, right? And all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising God of heaven, who had given them good success. So they kept the dedication at the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness and sacrifice of deliverance and praise. See that? So again, the Feast of Dedication is a commemorary, right? And we committed, and we going back to our temple, and we literally cleansing it out of all of the Greeks and their different. We have to build back up the temple. They destroyed it, man. We have to cleanse it, right? Because it was swine's flesh on the altar. And we cleaned it up. We put the menorah in there. We had burnt offerings, put the gold in there. And we gave all praises to the Most High, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. for having us build back up this temple, right? So that's why we keep the Feast of Dedication, man. Now, we don't have a temple right now. That don't mean build your temple and just destroy it and then clean it up. Make a Lego temple. No, we don't have a temple right now. So what do you have to do on this day? You have to eat, drink, and be merry, man. Right? You have to remember how our forefathers took down those men, Lysias and his army, right? And then other armies, and commemorated the temple and gave all honor and glory to the Most High, right? And how the Most High gave us a great deliverance from our enemies, and how we didn't sell out, right? And how Judas Maccabees and Simon and Jonathan all fought for the laws of our forefathers and stand up 10 toes down for the name of the Lord. So you have to keep the Feast of Dedication, man. And it says worshiping, and they dedicated with songs and cisterns. You jump down to verse number 58. It says, thus there were very great gladness among the people, for that the reproach of the heathen was put away. So these people, they had gladness, right? Don't pull up to the Feast of Dedication and you got your head down. You say, man, I ain't really feeling this, man. No, brother, you have to keep this with gladness. You should be happy, man, that your forefathers cleansed the temple so they could offer burnt offerings to the Most High. You have to keep this day with mirth and gladness, right? Verse 59. Moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their seasons from year to year by the space of 8 days, from the 25th day of the month Calcius, with mirth and gladness. And you have certain brothers saying we don't have to, that's show me that in the law, the Feast of Dedication. Well, brother, you're not going to find in the law the Feast of Dedication. You have to read what are you talking about? You have to read the book of 1st and 2nd Maccabees. And Yahweh Shai, he kept the Feast of Dedication. Right? So it don't have to be in the law for you to keep these feast days that the Most High has ordained. Right? Now let's pull up the date for the brothers that may not know, right, of the Feast of Dedication or when it is, so Israel could be prepared. See if we can pull this up. Right? I'm not sure if brothers and sisters could see this well, but I might have to pull it up on my phone. Right? So let me know if brothers and sisters could see this calendar pulled up. Right? Are brothers able to see this on the screen? Just type "con" if you're able to see this nice and clearly. Right? I'm not sure if they're able to see this. Nevertheless, right, if you're able to see this, all praises. So on this, the Feast of Dedication, you want to mark your calendars. The Feast of Dedication is December 17th to the 24th at sundown. Right? The Feast of Dedication is December 17th, right, to the 24th at sundown. Right? Somebody said it was small. Right? Might have to pull it up on the phone. Right? The Feast of Dedication is December 17th to the 24th at sundown. Let's see if I can pull it up. All right. Sure. I have to focus in on it. Right? Feast of Dedication is from December 17th to the 24th at sundown. I have to turn my brightness down. See if that worked better. All right, Salakia, bear with me. All right. It's December 17th, right? To the 24th at sundown. Most High willing brothers can see this. If you can't see it, just go on the Watchmen for Israel page on YouTube, on not on YouTube, on Instagram, and the calendar should be up there. All right. Again, it's from December 17th, right? It's from December 17th to the 24th at sundown. All right. That's the feast of dedication. So you want to mark your calendars, right? If you could get that first and second and last day off, right? All praises to the Most High, right? Now, let's go to the book of Second Maccabees, right? Let's go to Second Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 9. Right? Let's go to Second Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 9. It says, "Now see that ye keep the Feast of Tabernacles in the month Chalcius," right? And 104 score. It's like that's not what I want. I want Second Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse number 18. It says, "Therefore, whereas we are now purposed to keep the purification of the temple upon the 25th day of the month Chalcius, we thought it necessary to certify you thereof, that ye also might keep it as the Feast of Tabernacles and of the fire, which was given us when Nehemiah offered sacrifice after he had builded the temple and the altar." See that? So the same ordinances of the feast, just like you would keep the Feast of Tabernacles, you would keep it like the Feast of Dedication from 8 days. That don't mean on the Feast of Dedication you get a tent, you set up your tent. No, that's not what it's talking about. Just like you have 8 days for the Feast of Tabernacles, that's the same ordinance that you will have for the Feast of Dedication. It will be 8 days. That first day, no buying. That first day is a Sabbath. You treat it like a Sabbath. And that last day, that 8th day, is a holy convocation. You treat it like a Sabbath as well. So on the first and last day of the Feast of Dedication, no buying or selling, right? Cooking or work for hire. You keep the Feast of Dedication, the ordinances, right? Just like the Feast of Tabernacles. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 23. Right? Let's go to Leviticus chapter 23 and verse number 34. Leviticus 23 and 34. It says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of the 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord. On the first day shall be an holy convocation. Ye shall not do no servile work therein." So on the first and last day, on the first and 8th day, it's a holy convocation. You have to gather together, right? If you don't have anybody to gather together with, well, that's different. I'm saying reach out to see if somebody that you can link up with. But if you have people to gather together with on the first and 8th day, that's a holy convocation. You have to gather together. You don't be that brother that said, "I don't know about, I'm gonna just keep it by myself." No, brother, it's a commandment to gather together, right? On the first and on the 8th day. Those are holy convocations. You cannot do no servile work. You treat it like a Sabbath, but you could cook, right? You could cook those 8 days. All of those 8 days you could cook, all right? You could cook all of those 8 days. You could cook, right? That's the Feast of Dedication. All right, let's go to the book of Second Maccabees, chapter 10. Let me get this precept in Second Maccabees, chapter 10. Right, if there's any questions on the Feast of Dedication, right, it has to be about the Feast of Dedication. If you got any questions about the Feast of Dedication, we can answer them. But In the meantime, let me bring this out in 2 Maccabees chapter 10 and verse 5. Now upon the same day that the strangers profaned the temple, on the very same day it was cleansed again, even the 25th day of the same month, which is Calcius. And they kept the 8 days with gladness, as in the Feast of Tabernacles, remembering that not long afore they had held the Feast of Tabernacles. It's like it it says, and they kept the 8 days with gladness, as in the Feast of Tabernacles, remembering that not long before they had held the Feast of Tabernacles, when they had wandered in the mountains and danced like beasts. Right? So again, it's the same ordinances as the Feast of Tabernacles dealing with the Feast of Dedication. Now, one thing you do want to get for the Feast of Dedication, you want to make sure you get you a menorah, right? You want to make sure you get you a menorah to light it. That's what our forefathers did, right? Let's see if we can pull this up, a menorah. Right, you want to make sure you get you a menorah, man. Right? Or we start getting that stuff in right now. Just order it, right? You want to make sure you get and make sure it has 7 candlesticks on it, not 9. Right? You want to make sure you have 7 on it. That's pursuant to the law, right? In the law, you have 7 candlesticks on a menorah, not 9. Right? The so-called white man, he changed it to 9. Right? First, you see, Esau always changing stuff. Right? You got 9. Where in the Bible does it say 9 sticks on a candle? No, you have 7. That's pursuant to the law. Right? Let's get that. Let's go to the book of, I believe that's Numbers chapter 8. Right? This Numbers chapter 8 and verse number 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron, and say unto him, When thou lightest the lamps, the 7 lamps shall give light over against the candlesticks. So you have 7 lamps. Just look at Esau. Esau always changed stuff, right? Now you don't even have 7 anymore. You have 9 now. So you want it when you do get you a menorah, make sure you get you a set one that has 7 lamps. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You want to make sure you get that 7 lamps for the on a menorah, right? Pursuant to the law. All right, and make sure, you know what I'm saying, when that time approaches, make sure you read first Maccabees and 2 Maccabees. You want to read 1st and 2nd Maccabees, right? To get that full understanding of what you call the Feast of Dedication, or they say the Feast of Hanukkah. All right. They say Hanukkah, but Hanukkah, let's go back to the Hebrew word, which just means dedication. All right. Now it says, is every, they had a question. Is every other 8 days kept the same? Salakia. It says, I'm reading this. Is every other 8 days kept in the same manner, or are there also solemn days? No, all on the 8 days, those are all feast days. That's a part of the Feast of Dedication. So on those 8 days, you could cook, eat, drink, and be merry. But on the first day and on the 8th day, those are holy convocations, right? It's no servile work, right? No buying, selling, right? None of that, right? If I'm reading this right for your answer. All right. It says, I just came, King. When is the Feast of Dedication? Well, the Feast of Dedication is December 17th sundown to 24th sundown. That's the Feast of Dedication, right? The Feast of Dedication is December 17th at sundown to the 24th at sundown, right? Pursuant to the calendar. All right. Let's see if there's any more questions. It says, when the regular weekly Sabbath falls between the 1st and the 8th day in the Feast of Dedications, can you buy, sell, and cook on that day? Right? Hey, that's a good question. Let's go to it. Right? Let's go to it. Right? It's the book. Let's go to the book of Leviticus. Right? Leviticus chapter 23. Right? It's the book of Leviticus chapter 23 and verse number 2. And it reads, it's like my page is stuck. It's Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 2. It says, well, Leviticus 23 and 2, it says, speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, which shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest, and holy convocation ye shall not do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of the Lord and all your dwellings. Right? So when the weekly Sabbath falls during that feast of dedication, right, you would treat it like a Sabbath, but you can still cook though, right? So you will follow that Sabbath, right? No working, no buying or selling, but you could cook on that day, right? So when your weekly Sabbath falls online and a feast of dedication, you treat it like a Sabbath, but you can cook, all right? But you can cook. So I believe that 17th, it will be, I believe that's on Friday sundown, if I'm not mistaken. So that would be a double Sabbath, right? You have to prepare for that double Sabbath, all right? But you can cook on that day, all right? You can cook on that day because it's a feast, right? You can't cook on that day because it's a feast. Somebody said, why do the nations celebrate it and call it Hanukkah? They just cleaving, trying to be us. Well, let's pull it up, right? Right. So Amalek does that. All right. Your so-called Amalekites. Let's pull that up. Jewish man. These people right here, they called it Hanukkah, right? They call it Hanukkah, and they celebrate it with the 9 candlesticks, right? These men right here. All right. So ultimately, yes, brother, they got it from us because it was called the Feast of Dedication. But when you go into the etymology, when you go into that word for Hanukkah, it just means dedicated in the Hebrew or dedication in the Hebrew, right? Right. It says Chanukah, 8th day Jewish festival in commemoration of the purification of the temple in Jerusalem in 165 BC, from Hebrew Hanukkah, consecration or consecration, right? So this all the word Hanukkah means. But again, the so-called Amalekite, these people, a lot of them are Jewish. A lot of them are what you call Jewish converts, right? Or they converted to Judaism. So a lot of these people right here, they adopted our customs. They basically, this is what you call identity theft. So they stole the Feast of Dedication, they took it up, right, and they made it into their own thing. Just like with the rainbow, brother. The so-called white man, he took the rainbow, which was used for a covenant between the Most High and Noah, they would never flood the earth. Now they turned the rainbow into you could be a damn homosexual, the LGBTQ. So a lot of this stuff they practice in our customs and our laws. That's what you call Judaism, right? Judaism. Judaism, the monotheistic religion of the Jewish people. Now we know this is not a religion, right? We know this is a nationality or a heritage. But when you practice the customs of the Jews, ultimately that's what is going into Judaism. So a lot of those Amalek, their biblical nationality is Amalek, they converted to our laws and our ways. That's why you see them, they wear their fringes, right? They read the Torah. Look at this. Let me see if I can pull that up. Jewish. See that? This what Amalek wear, man. He think he got his fringes on. A lot of them don't even wear the fringes. Right? Look at this. You trying to be, and they have no salt. They have absolutely no salt, no flavor. Right? But yeah, yes, brother. When you go into, you could look up the origin of Hanukkah, and you go into it. Ultimately, they adopted a lot of things. Again, they stole our nationality. Right? They stole our heritage, and they're trying to be us. Now I want to pull something up. For more edification, you have something called the Maccabean Revolt on YouTube. You could look this up. You could watch this video. This is a good video to watch by Kings in General. Right? If you want a more in-depth visual, you want to go to the origins of Hanukkah, the Maccabean anti-Hellenic rebellion documentary. Right? It's only 20 minutes long. It's on Kings in General YouTube. Right? So if you want more edification on the in-depth visual on that, make sure you check that out. All right. Somebody say, is Exodus 12 and 16 applicable also for other feast days? Then, like it says for Passat in the context of Exodus chapter 12. Let's go to it. All right, let's go to Exodus chapter 12 and 16. All right, this is the book of Exodus chapter 12 and verse number 16. It says, and in the first day there shall be an holy convocation, and in the seventh day there shall be a holy convocation to you. No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you. Yeah, that's talking about the Passover, right? I wouldn't say that's only applicable for other feast days, because the feast of dedication is for 8, and you had a feast of unleavened bread, which is 7 days. So when you read Exodus chapter 12, that's going into the ordinances. A lot of the ordinances of the feast days, right? A lot of the ordinances of the feast days, they have similar ordinances, right? Like on a Sabbath day, there's no buying or selling, right? On the new moon, there's no buying or selling. Yeah, there are different feast days, but they have some of the same ordinances. So Exodus 12 and 16, that's chiefly going into the feast of unleavened bread, right? Right. But if there's no more questions, right, we're gonna wrap up. Giving all honor and glory to the Most High Yahweh. By Shema Mashiach Wamarak Yahushai. Most High willing, this video is edifying. Continue to read, pray, fast, and study. And most importantly, beseech the Heavenly Father for his mercy. With that, I'm going to say Shalom.